too late for her. Larry was never a man of many words. He lived a quiet life, working long nights as a security guard at a shopping complex on the outskirts of town. Every evening, he put on his faded uniform, laced up his worn-out boots, and stepped into the darkness, guarding buildings that were worth more than he'd ever seen in his life. But there was one thing that gave his life meaning: Amanda. She was his sunshine, his reason to keep going. Amanda was young, beautiful, and full of dreams. She wanted to become a nurse, to help people, to make her family proud, and to live a life far from the struggles of the township they grew up in. The problem was, her family couldn't afford university fees. So one night, as they sat outside their small shack, staring at the stars, she said softly, "Maybe it's just not meant to be, Larry. Maybe dreams like mine are for other people." Larry took her hand, looked into her eyes, and said, "No, Amanda, your dream will come true. Even if I have to give up everything, I'll make sure you wear that uniform one day." And he meant it. From that night on, Larry worked like a man possessed. He took extra night shifts, sold his old car, and cut every unnecessary expense. He barely ate. He barely slept. Every month, he sent Amanda money. Tuition fees, rent, textbooks, transport, everything she needed. When his friends laughed and said, "Bruh, you wasting your money on that girl. Once she makes it, she'll forget you," Larry would just smile and reply, "You don't understand. She's different. She's my future." Years passed. Amanda graduated with her nursing degree. On her graduation day, Larry stood at the back of the crowd, wearing his security uniform because he had come straight from work. When she walked across the stage to collect her diploma, he clapped the loudest, tears rolling down his face. To him, that was his victory too. After graduation, Amanda moved in with Larry. Their place was small, one bedroom, a little kitchen, and a fridge that was always half empty, but it was filled with love. At least for a while. Amanda was struggling to find a job. Every hospital she applied to told her they weren't hiring. Larry couldn't stand watching her disappointed every day, so he made a desperate choice. He bribed a hospital administrator, used all his savings just to secure her a position. When she got the job, she cried with joy, hugged him tightly, and said, "You're my everything, Larry. I'll never forget what you've done for me." He smiled, because to him, that was enough. But slowly, things began to change. The new job came with new friends, people who dressed nicely, drove fancy cars, and spoke a language of status Larry didn't understand. Amanda started coming home late. Her tone changed. She began comparing him to others, asking why he never wanted more from life, why he was still just a guard. One evening, she came home and said, "Larry, have you ever thought about going back to school? Maybe improving yourself?" He looked down and said, "I've never had the chance, but I'm saving now. Maybe one day." She sighed. Maybe one day isn't enough. Weeks later, Larry noticed something different. Amanda was always smiling at her phone, hiding her messages. He didn't want to believe it, but deep down he knew. She had met someone else. One night, she came home and said the words that shattered his heart. "Larry, I can't do this anymore. You're a good man, but we're not on the same level. I've moved on. Please don't make this harder than it already is." Larry stood there in silence, tears streaming down his face. He wanted to beg her to stay, to remind her of all the sacrifices he made, but he didn't. He just said, "I hope he gives you everything I couldn't." She walked out the next morning. For months, Larry was a broken man. He stopped eating, stopped smiling. The nights felt colder without her. But sometimes pain becomes the strongest kind of motivation. He quit his job as a guard and used his last bit of money to start a small security company. At first, it was just him and two friends, taking small contracts. But Larry was determined. He worked day and night, made connections, earned trust, and slowly his company began to grow. 3 years later, Larry Protection Services became one of the most respected security companies in the region. He had dozens of employees, men in uniforms he once wore himself. By year 7, Larry was a wealthy businessman. He drove the kind of cars he once guarded. He owned a home that could fit his old apartment 5 times over. But most importantly, he had found love again. Her name was Jane. She was kind, patient, and saw Larry for the man he truly was, not for what he had. They got married, had 2 beautiful children, and built a life full of joy and peace. Then one afternoon, fate decided to turn a page from the past. Larry was walking out of a supermarket when he noticed a woman struggling to push her wheelchair down the ramp. He walked over to help and froze. It was Amanda. Her once vibrant face was pale, her eyes tired. Her legs were gone. A car accident, she explained later. When she looked up and recognized him, her lips trembled. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Larry, is it really you?" He nodded slowly. "I can't believe it's you," she said. "You look so different." He smiled faintly. "It's been a long time." They stood in silence for a moment. Then she spoke again, her voice cracking. "Larry, I made a mistake. I lost everything. The man I left you for, he's gone. My family doesn't talk to me. I've got no one. Please, can we start over?" Larry looked at her, the woman who once crushed his spirit, and felt something unexpected. Not anger, not hatred, but just sadness and peace. He crouched beside her, looked into her eyes, and said softly, "Amanda, I forgave you a long time ago. But the man who once waited for you, the man who begged you to stay, he's not here anymore." He stood up, adjusted his jacket, and added, "I truly hope you find peace. Goodbye, Amanda." Then he walked away, leaving her sitting there, crying quietly, staring after the man who had once given her the world. For Larry, life had come full circle. He had lost everything for love, but in the end, he found himself. And for Amanda, the truth was simple. When she finally realized what she had lost, it was too late.
Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment.